evening, everybody. Welcome to the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. I'm Eli Gold, and we're joined here on the stage at Baumhower's by the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Coach Nick Saban. Good to see you, sir. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am well, thank you. And you know this guy, Jim Dunaway, a longtime member of the media here.
And one of the old pros.
Yes, that's it. You know, there's something to be said for that. The guys who've been around, seen it, been there, done that.
Yeah, I enjoy doing this all the time, Coach, with you. I don't know how you keep getting younger and I keep getting older. Is there a fountain of youth at Lake Burton? I keep looking at Miss Terry. Is there a fountain of youth you guys have found at Lake Burton?
Well, it certainly helps.
Yeah.
It certainly helps to have a place like that. It's a beautiful place that you go relax, enjoy, you know, each other, and actually develop a lot of friendships and relationships that you look forward to, even though you can't do it very often. It's something that, you know, kind of keeps you working and saying, well, because I do this, I can do that every now and then.
Mm-hmm. My only football question of the night. I didn't play football. I was a baseball guy. And I was a bad baseball guy, but until my senior year, I finally got to be the starter. And my first big game, or the first game I was in, I'd watched it as a backup, and I was finally in the game. And I was just starstruck. I mean, I was in the game.
What was your position?
I was a center fielder, which I had a little time to react. It wasn't like I was third base. So the other night, we you know, first huge game, Middle Tennessee and then Texas. Talk to me about the value of being in a game like that for some of the guys who maybe are new to the program or new to being a starter or a new role in the team. There's a value in that, I would imagine.
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. We talked about it last week, you know, when we were here. It's like a first test, a test against a really good team. And what it does is, you know, you get a report card back and it says, this is how I graded on the test. And some people get exposed. Some people develop confidence. The people that get exposed, you want to work with to try to, you know, help them overcome any deficiencies that they might have. And some of them are fundamental, and some of them are maybe eye control, eye discipline. Some of them are critical errors that have tremendous consequences on outcomes. But so all these experiences, to me, are beneficial in the growth of your team. And you learn a lot about your team, too. And you learn, you know, who can execute and do things at the level they need to against a good opponent. It's a lot easier to do things well against someone who's not as good of an opponent, and sometimes you don't get exposed. So, you know, there's one thing that I told the players, because, you know, Texas has a really good team, and they played well in the game, and we obviously didn't finish the game very well in the fourth quarter. But at the same time, the players need to understand that somebody said success is a, you know, lousy teacher, that it makes smart people think that they can't lose.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Paranoid people always think somebody's after them. And if you're going to be a player at Alabama, you got to be paranoid, because every team that plays us is going to try to beat us, because it makes their season, it makes their program. That's all they talk about.
Yep.
And I don't really know if our players sort of get that all the time. You know, they don't, they look at the game like it's a game, which it is, and we want them to, I don't mean to say play ordinary, but be in an ordinary mindset of what I have to do to execute and do my job, not in some anxious way out there trying to compete and make mistakes and make poor decisions and judgments. But, you know, you have to have, if you're going to be successful, you have to have consistency in performance. And we just did too many things in this game that you can't overcome. You know, we gave up way too many explosive plays on defense. And then, you know, people have heard me talk about in press conferences this week that we always do this thing about drive stoppers on offense.
Yeah.
And you really should have more than 20% of your plays that you run should not be drive stoppers. So if you ran 80 plays in a game, maybe you have 4, maybe you have 5. But we had 6 penalties on offense, which are considered drive stoppers. We turned the ball over twice, which is considered drive stopper. We had 1 drop, which is considered a drive stopper, and 5 sacks, which are all considered drive stoppers. So I don't even, somebody do the math on that while I was going through that, but that's like 14 or 15 drive stoppers, and we played like 65 plays of offense. Yeah. So with that kind of consistency, there's no way that you're going to be able to overcome and play well against a good team. And so these are, you asked me, what does your team learn? These are all lessons of life, you know, as an athlete and a competitor, that you learn that there are just certain things that you're not giving yourself the best opportunity to be successful if you continue to make these kind of judgments, errors, play with lack of discipline, whatever you want to call it. So that's this kind of stuff that we're working on to try to get fixed.
And how did the guys react to that this week?
Yeah, they've been good. I mean, they've been good this week. But, you know, for whatever reasons, I never thought we had. I never say this on the show. You always ask me, how's the week been? I always say it's been pretty good. But sometimes I don't think it's been good. And maybe it was the continuity of not having all the players able to practice last week and how that impacted and affected everybody. But it wasn't a week that had great continuity going in. And when you play against a team like that does, especially on defense, you don't have a couple guys in the secondary, and they do a lot of multiples, formations, motions, shifts that take a lot of adjustments. And you need that experience to be able to manage that, and we didn't manage it very well in the game.
Coach, as always, our first question on the phone comes to us from Pee Wee down in Grand Bay, Alabama. And it's also sponsored by Alabama 811 to help prevent injuries, outages, and loss of life. Call 811 or visit al811.com before you dig. It's free, it's simple, and it's the law. Pee Wee, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Eli. Coach, how are you, sir?
Well, Pee Wee, I've been wanting to talk to you all week, man. I mean, we got to firm up the pocket. We're setting too soft. We're getting pushed back in the middle. All right, everybody thinks we can't hold up against the blitz, but they're sacking us with 4-man rush, 1 3-man rush. Only 1 sack came off of a pressure, so I wanted to ask you what the hell's going on.
Well, I believe you covered it all right there, Coach. And you know, I was going to ask you, you know, how Coach Wolford and the guys, their mentality was this week, you know. Undoubtedly, you know, they're not happy with their performance, and they're looking to make a comeback. And I'm just curious of how their intensity and level of focus was this week.
Yeah, it's been good. I don't think anybody's, you know, pleased about any of those things, and we certainly don't want to take anything away from the other team because they had a lot of good players. But you know, you get exposed when you don't do the little things right. You know, we give them bird and rabbits by our stance up front. So therefore, the guy knows I can tee off on this play. I mean, all those little things sort of add up to create disadvantages for you. And when you're playing a game where you're trying to develop as many advantages for yourself as you possibly can to take advantage of maybe what they do. So it's been good, but this is a real difficult preparation, you know, for us. This team does a lot of stunting, a lot of blitzing, a lot of stuff very similar to the first week when we played Middle Tennessee. They have, you know, probably much better players. So if the offensive line is not focused and dialed in and we don't have a good plan, then they can make you look bad. They can make you look silly with some of the things that they do that you better be prepared for. So, and we got to get better execution all the way around. And, you know, the players have been good, and I think the execution has been better.
Coach, your answer there leads me to our first question from the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com. Jeremiah in Columbus, Georgia says, hey, Coach, South Florida has a first-year head coach in Alex Golesh, who was the former offensive coordinator at Tennessee. In watching their film, do you see many elements from last year's UT offense in their play calling? Thank you, and roll Tide.
100%.
Yep.
It's Tennessee's offense. It's go fast. It's spread out, wide splits. You know, a lot of good concepts. A lot of sort of tricks and gimmicks and formations to, you know, try to make your players make adjustments. But and they're going to go fast, so you can't play situational football. You almost have to play with the people on the field. So, our NFL style of third down, put 6 defensive backs in and a whole bunch of pass rushers and all that, you really can't do in these games, because even if you can get them in the game, you can't get them out. Because if they make a first down, they're going to go fast. And how many times in the past, whether it's the way Ole Miss plays or the way Tennessee plays, you get caught with 12 guys on the field because you can't make substitutions.
Sure.
And if they go fast, you got the wrong people on the field. You can't stop the runs. So you just got to play with the people that are on the field almost all the time and everything that you want to do. And it's very challenging, and it's challenging for the players, and it's a very challenging preparation. So how do you get the scout team to run their plays and do it fast, because they need to look at a card to know what the plays are. Yeah. So we're fortunate to have enough players here that we have 2 huddles. We have 1 huddle on this hash, 1 huddle on this hash, but only 1 set of defensive players. So when this team runs a play, this team's looking at the card. As soon as that play's over, they spot the ball over here, and the other team goes up, and then the defensive players got to come running over there and play this play. Sure. So you talk about wearing you out now. So we may do that for like 1 whole period in practice where, the players go for 6 or 8 plays. The other team, second team will go for maybe 6 plays, and then we might do it again. But you also got to do some practicing where you're not going fast so you can teach the players. So when you're going fast, I sit there on the script and I circle every one we messed up. All right, then when we slow back down, we repeat the plays and make corrections. Well, that's backwards from the way you'd like to be teaching and coaching. Yeah. You'd like to make the corrections as soon as they make them.
Can't do it when you're going that fast.
No, can't do it in a game either when they're going that fast.
Exactly. Jim Dunaway, jump back in, sir.
The crowd was amazing the other night. I was talking to him about that before you walked in, Coach. You do such a good job of complimenting them in the news conference. Back when you got here in 2007 to now, the atmosphere inside Bryant-Denny Stadium has changed tremendously, I think. It's one of the toughest places to play now. Did your wife, when you first got here, I'd always heard a little buzz that she would take notes in 2007 and 8 and maybe add a little advice? Did that happen along the way? That the atmosphere that's now at Bryant-Denny Stadium, did Terry Saban have a little nudge in that direction?
Absolutely. Every place we go, she goes to all the away games. All right, so if they're doing something there that really is good for the fans and really good for the atmosphere, when we get back on Sunday, somebody around here is hearing about it. So some of those things we've implemented, and it is great. The lights are great, the music's great. I think sometimes we overdo it. Like in the first game, I kind of told them, I said, look, we're playing really loud music when we're introducing the starting lineup. Mm-hmm. Nobody can hear who the starting lineup is. So we have to tweak things every now and then just to get it right. But I think the atmosphere is great. I think the environment's great. I think it's a great experience for our players. It's a privilege to play here. It's a privilege to be the coach here. There's great tradition. People are passionate about the team and what we do. So. And we just want to work hard to try to please everybody. But I think that, the motivation from the players have got to come from within. Their standard has got to come from within them, and that's got to be a character that we build on our team. And, we'll see how that continues to develop. But I've been encouraged by the response and how we've done things this week.
Gentlemen, we're going to come right back and continue our conversation, but right now we have to break away for these messages. We are live here in Tuscaloosa tonight on the Nick Saban Show, and the Nick Saban Show presented by Alpha. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
It's going to be at the 41, so it'll be a 51-yard field goal attempt for Will Reichard. Of course, he had a 52-yard field goal against Texas a year ago. Here's the kick. It's on the way, end over end, and it is good. Another Texas Longhorns, and he draws Alabama to within 13-9.
Will Reichard, that's why he's been a nonstop Groza finalist with kicks like that. This segment of the Nick Saban Show brought to you by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. With zero sugar and refreshingly delicious, is Coca-Cola Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? Well, find out for yourself. Jim Dunaway, your turn, sir.
You were talking about success and how it can hurt you. I was telling you last time you were on our show that I'd gotten my handicap in golf down to an 11. And since I told you that, it was sort of a big moment for me. I have not shot well one time since. I've been all over the place. Why is that? Why does that happen mentally to me and so many athletes that when you have success, I can't sustain it? Am I a mental weakling, or am I thinking too much? Am I trying too hard? What am I doing wrong?
Well, I think that you create expectations, and the expectations make you sort of become a lot more outcome-oriented. So rather than focusing on, the little things that are in front of you, you're worried more about the outcome than you are the system that's going to get you the outcome that you want to get, whether it's how you practice, how you focus on, this particular shot on this particular hole rather than, am I going to break 80 today or whatever? You're not thinking of the outcome, you're thinking of all the things you need to do to get the outcome. And I think that happens to a lot of us because we're in such an outcome-oriented world and there's so much sort of external things that affect our mindset that it's hard to stay focused sometimes on what's in front of you.
If I could pause the world right now for a brief second and we could go 4 hours on a golf course of your choosing or 4 hours on a boat on Lake Burton, where would you choose right now? You're not missing any work. We're pausing the world. We get 4 hours on a golf course, perfect weather, or on Lake Burton, perfect weather. I don't have to be with you.
Well, we have a nice golf course at Lake Burton and we have the lake, so why would I choose a golf course over the combination of the two?
I'll take that.
The man's got you right there.
Yeah.
Sir, welcome into Baumhauer's Victory Grill. You're on with the coach.
Hey, Coach. So I had a question about how to maintain consistency at a high level throughout your career. Is there any advice you could give me on how to maintain that consistency?
Well, I guess if I was what I referred to before, I guess I'm just paranoid. That means I always think somebody's out to get me, so that means I always am really focused on what's going to happen next. But I just think that you got to be a perfectionist of sorts, and you have to have a very high standard of how you want to do things. Not really what somebody else wants you to do them, but you want to do them. So, and you're willing to stay focused on the process of things that you have to do to be able to do that. And then you also have to have the discipline to be able to stay with it every day and execute it. Because that's probably the hardest thing any of us have to do is, just think of probably everybody in this room has been on a diet at some point in time, right? So, you got the goal, you want to lose 10 pounds, you got Slim Fast, they tell you everything you can eat, every day. But where do you fail? The process is defined, the goal is defined. 3 days in, you're eating pie and ice cream again. So we don't have the discipline to self-discipline, to do the things you need to do on a consistent basis to sort of keep doing things at a high level. And I think routine, if you can establish a routine of consistency, that builds confidence. That if I do these things a certain way at a certain time and I'm doing it at a certain level, I'm going to be successful. And you sort of buy into that process and you buy into that. And I think that helps you do the things you need to do to be successful. So, but we all have this thing about, okay, I'm only going to do so much. It's called self-imposed limitations. We all have self-imposed limitations. If I work from 9 in the morning till 5 o'clock, that's really all I'm willing to do to be successful. That's my buy-in. There's a limitation to it. I'm not going to do everything I need to do to be successful. So in my own mind, this is the level of commitment. So you should have the same expectation for the level of success and consistency and performance that you have, because it is hard. And everybody doesn't want to do hard. I mean, just like, talk about our season. Talk about having a successful season. You know how hard it is to practice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, play a game on Saturday, come back and watch the film on Monday, and go practice again and get ready for another opponent and do it for 12 weeks in a row, and do it at a level of consistency where you got to give great efforts, you got to have great mental toughness, and you got to have a tremendous amount of discipline to stay focused on being responsible to do your job, not only for yourself, but everybody else is dependent on you too. How do you sustain that? You know, you got to be someone who's got a really high standard for how they want to do things. Now, you try to establish that in the culture that you're trying to build, and you have expectations, and you don't accept things that aren't done in a certain fashion, but it's harder and harder to do that because people have more and more options, and the more and more options you have, the less committed you are. You know, the Romans took the cliff of Dover when they tried and tried and tried and tried, and the captain says, hey, we're burning the ships today. So there is no means to retreat. How many of us really make those kind of commitments to the things that we do? We're going to only do it to a certain level, and we're going to have self-imposed limitations, I call it, on just how much are we really willing to commit to. So you want to be successful, get paranoid. I think that somebody's after you every day and somebody's going to get your job if you don't do it better. Maybe that'll get you going.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your question.
Don't go home and burn any ships, though.
Yeah. We've got Harrison on the phone, Coach. He's joining us from up in Florence, Alabama. Hello, Harrison. How are you?
I'm doing great, Eli. Coach, how are you tonight?
Good, Harrison. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just had a quick question about kind of balancing a couple of things. Obviously, there's a lot of things from the last game that you want your team to learn from and improve on, but also you want them to look ahead to South Florida and what they do well. And I just wanted to know, what's the key to balancing that? Because you want your players to look back and improve on what they didn't do well the week before, but you also want them to look ahead and stay focused on what's in front of them. So what's the key to balancing that, do you think?
Well, I think that, you know, first of all, we sort of philosophically try to establish a mindset with the players that you've heard me talk about it before, where you have a 24-hour rule. We have a 24-hour rule. If we win the game, we enjoy winning for 24 hours. We lose the game, we're down, we're out, we're upset about it. And we got 24 hours and we need to get over it. And the way we're organized is we'll take all the things on Monday that we need to improve on and show the players what we need to improve on. We also show them what they did well, so they get reinforced for positive things that they did, win, lose, or draw. And then we turn the page and we say, okay, here's a scouting report for the next team. Here's the things we're going to do today in practice. And then we're on to the next thing. And each day in practice, the players know, what are we going to practice today? What part of the game plan are we going to work on today, whether it's offense, defense, or whatever. 1st and 10, 2nd long, goal line short yardage on one day, red area, 3rd down on another day, 2-minute, 2-point plays on another day. So they get focused in a hurry, because they know what gets presented to them in the meeting is what they're going to walk through, and then that's what they're going to go through in practice. And if they're not paying attention, they're not going to have quality reps, which is going to affect their ability to perform, you know, on the field when the game comes.
I was walking around the field pregame, and I looked, there's Marcel over there, there's CJ over there, there's AJ over here. What does it mean to you personally when those guys come back? And what does it mean to the program when they come back?
Well, it means everything, really. It means everything to me. You know, that players want to come back, that they have great pride in what they were able to accomplish here, and they have great pride in the tradition. They had a great experience here. They had great relationships with people who helped them, whether it was in academics or whatever part of their development. and that they appreciate the fact that something was done here to help them be successful. And a lot of those guys have had a lot of success. And, you know, it's the goal of our program to help every player in the program have a better chance to be more successful in life. And I think when the players know that you care about them as people, that's really, really important to them buying into doing the things that player really doesn't know what you know until he knows that you care. So that's something I think is really important. And we have great relationships with a lot of those guys, and I think they know that when they come to Alabama, it is a privilege to play here, but it's also a benefit to have played here because we have such great tradition and so many people that are like, you're an Alabama Crimson Tide player forever, and you're looked up to forever, and people are willing to help you forever. And that's the way we want it to be. That's the way I want it to be, and I'm just thankful that we're in a place where we have that.
Amen to that. We're coming right back, gentlemen. We'll continue with more. The Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. We're back right after this on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Man in motion, goes to the far side. Here's Milroe, loads up, looks down the left side. He's got a man there, open to the end zone. Touchdown, Jermaine Burton. That will be 49 yards.
5 receptions on the year, 120 yards and a couple of touchdowns for Jermaine Burton, the senior from California, as we welcome you back to Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. Get a quote or find a local agent at alphainsurance.com. The host of his own podcast, The Next Round, Jim Dunaway, is our media guest tonight. Jim, jump on in again.
I enjoyed Holly Rowe here last week. She's fantastic. I've always enjoyed
is.
Holly. Off to Tampa this week. Tell me about the value of playing in a place like Tampa. I know you can't speak about specific recruits, but I would assume it's a hotbed of people who would be interested in playing at Alabama and some Alabama fans that live in the Tampa area. Some opportunities to get down to Tampa.
Yeah, well, Florida has been a real asset for us in recruiting for many, many years, and for the players that we have on the team to be able to go back, that's a good experience for them. But it's great exposure for the program to play, you know, in the state of Florida, because there are a lot of good players, you know, in Central Florida as well as all over the state. So it's a real positive from that standpoint. I don't think there's any question about it. But, you know, there's so many games on TV now that I think when you have opportunities, this game's on TV, on ABC. Last week was on ABC. Having game day here was fantastic. So all these things, you know, to me have a cumulative effect on the brand that you can develop in the program. Now, obviously, you want to play well and have the players represent the program in a first-class positive way, which I think our players do. But all those things, to me, create value for the future relative to the exposure that you get in all these different areas.
Coach,
I think technically you have to pay McAfee now because you said the brand. I think he trademarked the brand. So
well, you know, he has a great following, especially in young people.
Right.
And he's a hoot. So I kind of enjoy, you know, doing it with him because you never know what he's going to say next.
That's exactly right. We got a question here, Coach, from the AL.com readers, and this kind of follows up. Hey, Coach, playing in Tampa has to be special for the players and their families from the area. My question is, can our assistant coaches still go to local high school games in Florida on a Friday night? Thank you, and roll Tide.
Yeah, that's a good question. That rule, you know, has changed somewhat through the years, but we're allowed during fall evaluation time so many days to have on the road. And each coach that goes on the road, that counts as a day. So if you send 3 coaches out this week, that's 3 days.
Gotcha.
So we used to have 42 days. Now I think we have 33 days. So we don't have as many days to go out. So I try to keep a balance of okay, which coaches do we want to be here with the team that's important in this particular game, and which coaches can we afford to go out, and then also take the balance of who recruits in that area, have them go out in Central Florida, because that's where they recruit, that's where they have relationships, that's where they're recruiting players. And you know, that they can go out while we play in a game like this. And when we play in Louisiana, for instance, you know, the coaches that recruit in Louisiana would use that time to go out because it's where they have the best relationships. So this week, for instance, not giving you insider information, but we'll have 3 coaches that actually leave tonight, and they will spend the day tomorrow going to schools and go to games tomorrow night.
Okay.
And last week, I think we had 3 guys out in different places, so you're kind of hitting different areas, you know, as you go. When you play at home, we have guys go out, but we also hit the areas wherever we're playing on the road.
We have a visitor here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill with a question. Hi there.
Hey, Coach. Hope you're doing well. Going into this week, I was wondering if there were any specific points of emphasis.
Oh, there's always points of emphasis. I think the big thing that we try to emphasize to our players this week was we have to execute and play better with more consistency, and it's up to each guy to choose to practice better, get better repetitions, and be more prepared that when we go in a game, we're not making mistakes that help the other team. So it's not really about what they do, it's more about what we do. And that's the message that I tried to give the players. I said it earlier, the one about, you know, everybody wants to beat us. You have to respect that, and you have to be really well prepared for that every time you play. And then pay specific attention to detail and do the little things right. That's where we suffered, and you get exposed when, you know, you're not taking care of those kind of fundamental things. So we need to get better execution at some critical positions because they will distribute the ball and take advantage of some of the other players that we have, create more balance on offense. We need to do that. And we can't give up explosive plays on defense. We can't lose turnover battle. They got 2 turnovers. We didn't get any. So there's a lot of things. We weren't the most physical team. We didn't win the 4th quarter. I mean, there's a lot of things that come out of that game that are great lessons for us, that if you're going to be a dominant team and a dominant program, that can't happen. You got to be the more physical team. You got to win in the 4th quarter. That's just, and you got to, turnovers and explosive plays are critical in winning. So, and the consistency that I talked about that we're missing on offense in terms of dry stoppers, that's hard to overcome against a good team. So all those things that I've talked about have been big points of emphasis with the players this week.
When you were talking about recruiting and high school games, I just remember what a big deal it was when the colleges showed up at high school games to watch kids play, all the way back to your high school days. What was your favorite part about Friday night football? I assume in West Virginia it was always Friday night for high school football as well, right?
It was Friday night.
What did you love about Friday nights?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. You know, the old traditions that the community related to the school. I mean, like Monongah. Probably 30 years ago, they consolidated and made it North Marion, but everybody that lived in Monongah, the last person turned the lights out when the game came. Everybody went to the game. Everybody was interested in the school and the spirit of the school and who was in the band and who were the cheerleaders and and everybody went to the game. And where I played, everybody bet on the game. So you've heard me say this before. They stand behind the bench, and I was the quarterback to say, we got to score again, we got to cover. So I love that. And you know, Meff's was the little joint that there was a pool table, 2 card tables. Everybody played. I didn't play cards, but people played poker and gamble and all that. And there was a pinball machine. And if we won, it was the only pinball machine in town. We got a roll of nickels, and we played the pinball machine for free. If you lost, they never let you in. So somebody, because we're all underage, we weren't supposed to be in there anyway. So somebody asked me, you know, how did you get like you are?
Yeah. You won enough games to get inside.
Had to win the game to get in.
There you go. The background from Coach Nick Saban. We're coming right back. Don't leave us now. We'll be hearing the coach's final word shortly, but right now we break for this on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Again, a low snap. Picked up by Milroe. He'll throw, and it's caught by Nyblack. He'll make the grab down to the 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Alabama. 39 yards. 39 yards.
Amari Nyblack on the receiving end of that one as the Crimson Tide faced the Texas Longhorns this past weekend. This Saturday, South Florida playing host to the Tide. It'll be a broadcast time of 11:30 Alabama time. Kickoff will be at 2:30 Bama time from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. Time getting short, Jim Dunaway, but we have time for one more question from you.
I did want to ask you quickly, there's a lot of discussion in football now because of the Aaron Rodgers injury, what you think of natural grass and turf. You're an ambassador for the sport. People listen to you. We have a beautiful surface. It looked probably better than I've ever seen it look the other night for that game. It looked fantastic. I assume you love natural grass more than turf?
I don't think there's any question about that. I think most of us grow up playing on natural grass, so that's kind of what we're used to. I think they made tremendous progress in the quality of turf where people have turf. It's not like it used to be. It's not as hard. It's more like natural grass. I do think that there's been, a history for a long time of foot and ankle injuries, knee injuries. Are there more occasions for that to happen when you're on artificial surfaces, the natural grass, because it doesn't give, you got more grab? I don't know if all those things are true, but I don't think there's a player on our team that would rather not prefer to play on natural grass, and we prefer to practice on it. We do have to go inside and practice inside on occasion here because it's so hot. It's more because of the heat than it is because of bad weather or anything else. I mean, you can't wear your players out when it's 95 degrees every day, and you're going through practice, and there's at some point in time you have to recover. So on Thursdays we usually go inside.
Coach, time for your final word of the evening, presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the vehicles are all electric. The feel is all Mercedes.
Yeah, well, we've all had to suffer through a lot of criticism and things that we didn't do well, and I will say one thing for our players, it means more to them to win or lose a game than to anybody else, and I think sometimes people lose sight of that, and we don't want to waste the failure that we had in terms of the adversity that we have an opportunity to bounce back from. And I think, sometimes adversity breaks you, and sometimes it can make you great. And hopefully our players are going to respond the right way. They have all week. I know they have a lot of pride in what they do. They have a lot of pride in their performance, and they want to do things in a way that everybody can be proud, and we certainly want to do it that way too. They worked hard this week, and I think we'll respond the right way, and it'll be interesting to see how our players respond. But I'm really proud of this bunch of guys. I mean, I'm disappointed in the game just like everybody else is disappointed in the game, but these guys have worked hard. There's a good chemistry on this team. I think we just got to get the right players in the right spots to do the right things to complement each other, and we can have a really good season. And, all the goals that we have are still in front of us. If we learn from our failings, we're going to have a chance to, I think, develop into a really good team. But our consistency and performance has got to be the thing that we develop and improve on week in and week out.
You're exactly right. Everything you want, all those goals, still attainable.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Listen, great to have you, Coach, as always. Thanks for your generosity on your time. And Jim Dunaway, good to see you, sir. I'm glad the podcast is going gangbusters and continued success.
Well, I know Coach has said this several times, but as I said earlier, we're so glad to have you back, Eli. It just sounded like a Saturday the last 2 Saturdays, and just glad to have you back.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you,
Eli,
so much.
we are happy to have you back, and I've had many, many people comment on the fact that we missed Eli, and we're glad to have him back, and it's part of the tradition around here, so we're excited about that. And you know, I always like to comment the old timers. You know, I'm an old timer. You know, I have to explain the fact that, you know, I'm old school. You know, now, even though I don't think I'm old, I think I'm pretty young. But I think old school in terms of things that are important to winning and losing. But professionalism is something that I always have a tremendous amount of respect for. And you've always had a tremendous amount of respect in your profession as a media person with a tremendous amount of professionalism, and I certainly do appreciate that.
Oh, you're very, very kind. And Jim, we say the same thing about you, and it's great to see you. Gentlemen, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you,
All
Eli.
right, thank you.
Coach Nick Saban and Jim Dunaway.